Welcome back to Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings, episode 21 now. We're here to break down as much as we can what happened in week two. I am your co host, Chris. I'm the philosophy professor and Steelers fan in the group.
And I am Ajay Nair. I am the Chiefs fan and psychiatrist in the group. Uh, Thanks to all of you that have been following along here on YouTube or on whatever podcast app you're using to listen to the podcast. Or you can find the podcast at Steeler Thoughts, Chief Feelings. I Google searched it, and all the podcast pages just come up on Amazon, Apple. So
That's
if you,
fancy.
there are not a lot of people with Steeler thoughts and cheap feelings, so the search engines know exactly where to take you.
It's a
Um,
very niche market.
yeah. So uh, thanks for you that follow along, and then we're on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at STCF715 on all of those platforms. And that leads me into our comment of the week. This one from TikTok. I had posted a little clip of a film breakdown of Chris Jones when he strip sacked Lamar Jackson in week one. And trying to, as someone who doesn't have a lot of football jargon, trying to describe what he was doing, he basically went outside of the tackle when the tackle and guard were trying to double team him. And so I described it as running around the double team, which some people, well, one person in particular really did not enjoy. He seemed to think that implied that he was doing something bad. It was like, no, he wasn't running around the double team. He made a great move. And I was okay. But anyway, in the midst of all that discussion, so there were several comments going back and forth about this. And in the midst of all of it, I wanted to point out the comment from Herc, which was, but how does this affect LeBron's legacy? Which made me laugh out loud. So that is our comment of the week
That's
from
a good one.
Herc on TikTok.
I might use that. And if I don't know what to make of some play or some analysis, I'll just ask how it affects Brown's legacy. That's right. um, Good. Well, do you want to get into the Chiefs? I mean, we both had. I don't know if they were objectively fun during the games, but they were at least maybe fun games to talk about in hindsight this week. So do you want to get into the Chiefs Bengals game?
Yeah, sure. The Chiefs beat the Bengals 26-25 in quite an up and down game. I think there was a lot of down, but yeah, it was not that far from what I expected going in. I think I had said I thought we were going to win 30-24, and I thought it was going to be very ugly. It ended up being closer and uglier than I thought it was going to be. Even
Yeah,
uh,
you called that though. I think you were more pessimistic. I mean, it's you were thinking the Bengals were going to, figure it out for this week, and it seemed like they kind of did. Um, I thought I was more optimistic about the Chiefs. So you're definitely right here.
and the Bengals really broke tendency to exploit a big weakness for the Chiefs. I think they went to their tight ends a lot and exploited the fact that our safeties and linebackers really struggled covering them one on one. So I thought even guys like Justin Reed were giving up out route passes to tight ends. I think we were not probably prepared for that. Joe Burrow had his most passing yards to tight ends in his career by the time we were in the second quarter. Um, so they were really doing that. They were not able to get Jamar Chase going, but their backup wide receiver, whose name I've forgotten now, number 80,
Oh
caught two
yeah,
touchdowns.
it's some
Um,
new name that I don't remember, like
yeah,
Boy Sitchi or something like that.
he, yeah, I don't remember. I'll look it up during at some point. But he, his first
Yeah,
touchdown was a really good catch, and I was in the corner against Nazi Johnson, who I wasn't 100% sure why he was on the field. Probably because Joshua Williams had been playing so badly. Oh, it's Iosivas,
oh,
Iosivas,
yeah.
Andre
Okay, I wasn't really
Iosivas.
that close.
You got the
Yeah,
spirit of the name.
that's right. Yeah, I got the essence maybe. Uh, yeah, was that the one where he made like a really nice move? He looked like he was cutting in and then went out and caught it, or was that the second touchdown?
That was the second one. The first one he like caught at the front pylon, like falling out of bounds, and
Oh
barely got his
yeah,
two toes in bounds. Like it was,
that was one that
and
was a little unclear to me whether the ball ever crossed the plane there. And again, this is I think we've discussed this before, like what exactly would be a touchdown in that scenario. But
I
did you have any hesitation about whether that counted or should have counted?
I actually didn't. I didn't look for the ball in the moment, so I'm not sure. I was just looking at the toes because the toes were really. I mean, I think he got him down, but it was
Yeah,
about as it was tight as you could while getting your toes down.
yeah, that right foot I think very like maybe just
It was a
grazes the grass, and it's hard to
gentle
see because it's
touch.
behind the left foot. A gentle touch, yeah, that's right. But it was I didn't know. There seemed to be a question to me that didn't get discussed that I saw maybe about whether the ball had crossed the plane, and then maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, it seems like it should matter
Yeah, I would
because it
think
always
it should
matters in other
matter.
contexts.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man, I gotta rewatch this now. I didn't notice the ball throughout all of that.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I just didn't get a good angle, and there was a clear angle that showed it crossing. But what I saw made me hesitant to endorse the touchdown call. But you know, it happens. Um, but yeah, you were saying they fed the tight ends a lot. I mean, Gasicki had. I mean, it felt like it was like every big play was to him, basically. Well, not every big play, but they made a lot of plays to him.
He made a lot of
Uh,
plays, and the defense in general was not consistently able to. I think there was one three and out early in the game. Then the Bengals scored on like four straight drives, two touchdowns and two field goals in the middle of the game. And during that time, the Chiefs had, we had already had Mahomes' first pick. Then we had a fumble that was recovered by the Bengals. We had a touchdown, then a punt, or maybe a punt, then a touchdown, and then an interception. So we were very inconsistent offensively. This was a troubling offensive performance. And then the game really turned on its head with a sack fumble of Burrow, and Shamari Connor returned it for a touchdown. And that really kind of swung the game for us.
but even after that, it was still tense. I mean, uh, they kicked a field goal, I think, right? And then you had to come back and get a field goal at the last second there.
Yeah, it was definitely not a foregone conclusion after but I feel like it looked like it could have been going the other way. If the Bengals scored on that drive, like that game might have kind of gotten out of grasp for us, especially the way that it really does, in retrospect, feel like the first interception that Mahomes threw like got to him just a little bit. I know he threw a touchdown to Rashee Rice after that, but sorry, that wasn't to Rashee Rice. He threw a touchdown to Wanya Morris. We had a
Oh
touchdown
yeah,
drive, but it was a preliminary. It was a primarily running drive that got us down the field. It didn't seem like Mahomes really felt confident in what he was seeing after that pick. And Andy Reid described it as a miscommunication between Kelsey and Mahomes on an option route. But really, like looking at, because there have been some all 22 clips of that play, it really looks like Mahomes had options on that. Xavier Worthy was running a corner pattern against cover two safety, which was open. He had Pacheco like wide open in the flat, which I understand him not like first looking to the flat, but it was an odd play. Like it was a fairly standard coverage, so
Mhm.
it was unfortunate. I think
Yeah.
he just locked on to Kelsey.
But that was one where, yeah, I guess it seems hard to construe that as a miscommunication, given that no matter where you're throwing it there or where you think he's running there, there's a linebacker sitting right there in the path. And
Yeah,
that was the
yeah.
problem. But I mean, those are always strange plays from like a viewer's perspective because at least when you're watching it live, you see the linebacker and you see the quarterback making the throw, and you like sometimes you can't, right? And deep in the secondary, you can't tell what the secondary is doing on live TV. But these are ones where you see the whole thing happen, and you think, why did you throw it there? And Ben had so many of these over the course of his career. I mean, I got sick of them, but yeah, I mean, they're the kind of thing that maybe look more inexplicable than other throws, but I don't know. Did you have a diagnosis about what the ultimate cause was? Is it just that Mahomes didn't miss the linebacker?
I think so. My guess is, when considering like the Mahomes Kelsey option routes, is that Against zone coverage, I think Mahomes trusts Kelsey so much to be watching the coverage himself that if Kelsey settles, or Mahomes might have just been assuming he was open
Oh,
because
yeah.
Kelsey is so good at doing that. So that I think was my. And it's weird because I'm sure it's happened, but I can't remember a time since 2018 that Mahomes thrown a pick to an underneath linebacker. Um, he did it against the Patriots in 2018. Well, that's not true. In the Super Bowl in 2019, he threw one to Fred Warner, I think, but that's also Fred Warner. It's not really a thing that he does very often. You know, his picks are usually like when he's trying to move somebody and he can't. It's not that he's not aware of somebody. It's usually that he thought the defender was going to do something other than what they did, or he thought the receiver was going to do something other than what they did. This was an oddity.
Yeah, but that's a cool diagnosis. I mean, I can imagine, right? You just trust Kelsey so much that if he's sitting, he thinks he's open, and so you think he's open. Turns out he's not. That's cool. Did you have, I mean, the second pick was just an amazing play by the corner, I guess it was. I mean, I imagine Mahomes could have maybe lobbed it a bit more to keep it out of reach. I don't know if you had a thought there.
Yeah, that was it for me. Is that I definitely think he could have put more under it. You know, I also think Worthy could have fought for that ball a little more. But ultimately, like I don't think Worthy thought, nor did I think that Cam Taylor Britt was going to catch that ball. Like I thought he was just going to get a hand on it. So I mean, great play. But yeah, I do think we hold Mahomes to a fairly high standard. So I feel like it's fair to say I would have liked him to put a little more air into that.
But do you think he was rattled for the rest of the game after that first pick? Then?
I do, and I'm really excited to watch the tape on this. But I do feel like usually when Mahomes is in situations where guys are running open and he's not hitting them like that, which is true only happened like the only evidence I have for that is on the interception play. But I I don't know. We'll have to see what the coverage is, but my guess is I think he's had some bad experiences with this defense in particular and this coordinator, and Lou Anarumo seems to know how to put things in ways that are confusing to Mahomes. And he didn't have a great chance to get into a lot of rhythm because they were dropping safeties and we were running the ball. And it was so effective early on in the game and early in the third quarter that it didn't really matter. But then when they started stopping the run, you know, I think Mahomes, they said this was the fewest passing yards he had in a game that he started and finished. He only had like 151 or something like that.
Yeah, that's like high for us, but but for Mahomes, that's very low. You usually think like 151 by midway through the second quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
What was your take on Burrow in this game? Like, did you see anything concerning about the wrist in his play, or in general, what you make of it?
I mean, extremely frustratingly, he always looks great against us. I mean, he didn't look impaired in any way from my diagnosis. Like he was throwing the ball great. He did throw like a deep pass down the sideline that he was comfortable like lobbing up there. He wasn't throwing a ton like down the seams, but that might have just been the way that we were covering things. But he was throwing like out routes to tight ends. That's what they were really, you know, it looked like when they were getting our linebackers and safeties. It wasn't a ton of crossing routes, although that happened too. But it seemed like he was getting them like with inside leverage and just having the tight end run an out route and beating man coverage. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, those are the kinds of throws that you probably like out routes outside the numbers. You don't throw those if your wrist isn't feeling okay, I think, or your arm's not feeling. I mean, I guess those are the kinds of throws that Bengals fans should be happy seeing him make at this point.
yeah,
Not that I'm happy to see him make them, but it does feel like they came out of this game. I mean, if you ever have a moral victory in the NFL, that was probably a moral victory for the Bengals, right? They seem like they're going to be a force if they can play like that, especially in Kansas City.
and part of the reason I should give Mahomes a little bit of credit too, that I think part of the reason he was spooked was that Trey Hendrickson just started beating the crap out of Kingsley Suamataia. Like, I mean, by the third end of the third, early fourth quarter, like Mahomes had absolutely no faith on that side of the ball. Like when he wasn't getting beat, he was either holding or he'd have an illegal hands to the face penalty. And we actually ended up benching him for Wanya Morris in the fourth quarter. And then Wanya Morris had a crucial illegal hands to the face penalty on 4th and 6, which is what led to the 4th and 16 where the Bengals had a DPI call, which ended up extending our drive.
Yeah, and since you brought it up, that was obviously one that Bengals fans complained about, but I don't understand the grounds for complaint on that one, to be honest. That was as obvious as it gets to me.
Well, and honestly, it was the second time. Not only do I feel like there's not a case to be made, but that was the second time that happened. The first time wasn't flagged. And the first time one could argue was like a little more bang bang. It was the same. I think it was Cam Taylor-Britt going through. So it wasn't the same defender, but it was Rashee Rice again. It was a third down play, and he was definitely early hitting Rice. Like in the moment, I was extremely frustrated, especially because it was a drive after Jamar Chase committed a blatant OPI, and it was called defensive pass interference on Trent McDuffie. So that happening in back-to-back drives was very frustrating. But at least I feel like I could have given it to, like Tony Romo on the broadcast said he thought it was like 50-50. At least I could have given it to them being like it, you know, in real time I could see it being bang bang. Although in real time I definitely felt like he was early. Sometimes I know officials, if it's like close, won't call it. But this one on 4th down was, I mean, it was pretty simple. I know people don't love it, but it was pretty simple.
I think, I mean, to have not called that in that situation would be, I don't know, I mean, very frustrating. Yeah. So since, I mean, do you want to talk about Jamar Chase? I know you have some things you might want to say about him, and he just came up again. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to rant for a bit, that's fine with me.
I'm going to try to keep this organized because I have several thoughts about him and I don't want to just like ramble. But I guess we'll start with, I already did like a little bit of a Jamar Chase rant on a video I think I posted in July. This was right after, during the NFL Top 100 promotions, which I don't think we ever discussed the NFL Top 100. We should probably do that at some point. But they were still promoting it. And at that time, most everybody, including Jamar Chase, thought that Patrick Mahomes was going to be number one. And they asked him who he had number one. And Jamar Chase basically said something to the effect of like, I'm not going to say his name. Like, you're not going to get me to say his name. I won't say it. He did say like, you know, he's really good or he's the best or something to that effect. And then finally he said Burrow. And so my commentary on that at the time was, I honestly didn't really care that like, I don't care, you know, I didn't understand why Chiefs fans were mad about that. That it's just like, he's not saying he's saying Mahomes is the best. Like why, who cares? But I did talk about how I feel like Jamar Chase is a really bad trash talker. And I think the reason is because part of the art of trash talking is like understanding the time and place for everything. Like, for example, this week, Jamar Chase said that, like, we're the team, everyone knows we're the team to beat in the AFC or something. And it's like, you know, like, you just lost to the Patriots. Like, maybe now is not the time, you know. Or when he trash talked the Browns right after losing to the Browns. It's just like, it starts to become like Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump will say everything he did is the greatest thing ever, and now no one puts any credence into any description he has of anything he does because he always says it's the greatest thing ever. And that's how I feel about Jamar Chase's trash talk. Like, he talks if they lose, he talks if they win. Like, it's become meaningless. It doesn't mean anything at all. And
it's kind of similar too. It's like everyone is saying, you know, everyone knows we're the team to beat. Everyone is saying it was the greatest phone call of all time. Right?
Like, regardless of how people feel about either Jamar Chase or Donald Trump, I feel like it's fair to say that what they say doesn't really mean anything because they say the same kind of thing all the time. They evaluate every situation the same way. And so then it's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, how are they a reliable source? And he also, it's almost like he has to say something. I would hate to like be his coach because it's just like, it doesn't seem like he's able to just like, like pass, or, I don't have anything to say about that. Like he always has something to say. And that extends to the football field. I remember when the Chiefs played the Bengals a couple years ago, Justin Reed, this was in Cincinnati. Justin Reed before the game, unfortunately, made some comments, which is uncharacteristic of an Andy Reid coach player. But I don't think it started out intentionally. I think it started because he couldn't remember Hayden Hurst's name. And he called him Tyler Higbee first. And he was basically trying to say, like, we'll have him under control. Like, that's going to be my job. And after the Bengals scored their first touchdown, Jamar Chase got a taunting penalty on Justin Reed because he had to go to his face and tell him about whatever he had to tell him about and do a bunch of gestures that led to a flag. So it's not at all surprising to me that Jamar Chase got a flag in this instance. And again, it was for something that didn't occur. Jamar Chase's assumption was that there was a hip drop tackle when I can never say hip drop, a hip drop tackle when McDuffie tackled him in that. So Trent McDuffie got him on it was a 3 or 4 yard gain. And I believe it was going to be 3rd and 7. And McDuffie kind of grabbed him around the head. So I first thought that maybe Chase incorrectly thought it was a face mask. But McDuffie did kind of pull his weight down, but never left his feet. He kind of did the half splits, but maintained his feet on the ground and pulled him down. And Chase thought it was a hip drop, so he went to the official, who basically waved him off. And then Chase came back to the official, got flagged. Then Burrow came and pushed Chase away, and then they got Chase back to the huddle, and then he started going over to an official again, and Burrow came back and shoved him into the huddle. Or at least it may not have been a true huddle, but into wherever the Bengals players were standing. Then Chase again started moving, and Burrow got his hands on him, and Chase turned to him and was like, I'm good. And that was if I were Joe Burrow, I would be so mad because I would be like, what do you mean you're good? You literally just cost us 15 yards. We're now 3rd and 22 instead of 3rd and 7. Couldn't you have been good before we threw the flag? Before they threw the flag? If you were good, we wouldn't have been penalized right now. What are you I feel like that to me is very exemplary of who Jamar Chase is. You're trying to convince someone that you're calm and they don't need to talk to you when your behavior has cost the team. And they ended up kicking a field goal and being put in a position where we were able to kick a field goal and win the game. And who knows, if it was 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 22, maybe they converted there and they would have won the game.
Yeah, man. In some sense, it's kind of satisfying that this really bit them as hard as it did, right? Yeah. Maybe you take a lot more satisfaction in that than I do. But Jamar Chase is, I guess you're right. This is who he is, right? This is the kind of thing that he'll do. And I do feel like the Chiefs must just be in the Bengals' heads at this point. I think that's been clear for the fact that the Bengals take these games so seriously anyway. But I think there might be an element of just sort of an inferiority complex that, is coming out on plays like this. But I don't know. It's... Jamar Chase already has this weird dynamic with the Bengals right now, right? He's not negotiating anymore with them during the regular season because he feels like they misled him in the offseason about extending him. I don't really know what to. I'm sort of fine with all this as a Steelers fan, but I don't know what to expect to happen there. But certainly you got to think that Burrow, especially after that sequence there, can't be happy with Chase's behavior. I don't know.
I would be furious. And I think even more, there was the kind of idea that the Chiefs were in the Bengals' head. And I think it's gotten worse for Chase because I think Trent McDuffie is in his head. Because at least early on when we would play the Bengals and they were winning, Chase would go off, Today he had, 4 catches for 34 yards. And he had 1 reception on Trent McDuffie, I think. It was that 4-yard catch, which led to a 15-yard penalty, so they net lost yards on the catch. I think he is struggling with the fact that he's got a really good corner on him as well. Like he doesn't even have the individual performance to lean on. And uh, I didn't hear the full interview that Trent McDuffie gave after the game, but the quotes that were pulled from it made it seem like the kind of tenor that McDuffie basically said, you know, he's a really great player and I'm a really great player too. And he said his strategy is when playing Chase is like Chase has a lot to say and he's like, I don't have a lot to say. I try to let the pads do the talking. And I feel like for someone, I've always felt that psychologically the best thing you can do to a trash talker is not at all acknowledge them, not talk to them whatsoever, and then play better than them. Like that's got to be infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, I feel like it's not what I like. Do you ever think about like what you would do in like in trash talk? Like someone's trash talking you. I feel like my reaction would just be like, yeah, nice point or whatever. Like it would be very congenial, essentially. But I think not talking is probably the thing that's going to get in their head the most, and it sounds like McDuffie's done that with Chase. Do you want to? If you have more to say about Chase, I don't want to cut that off, but I also want to just touch on the injuries that have been some big injury news for the Chiefs in the last couple of days.
I did want to just talk a little bit tangentially about the meaning of the OPI DPI play that we like brought up because I do think this could start becoming a problem. We actually saw this also in the Steelers Texans preseason game where Robert Woods pulled Joey Porter down in a similar fashion. Like what receivers are doing, what Chase and Woods have both done and gotten DPI calls is they run like, you know, the defender has got him out wide down the sideline. They're running and the defender is kind of facing the receiver and the receiver will go down and grab the inside of their shoulder pads and pull the defender down with them on top of them. And both times they got DPI calls. So I feel like receivers are going to start doing this more and more if they get rewarded for it. That's something that the league is going to have to pay attention to.
Yeah, what do you think? What's going on there? Is it that the refs are not at an angle where they can see that that's what's happening?
Yeah, I think
Maybe
from the ref angle, they just feel like the defender is just like diving on the receiver essentially, which one would hope they would think that most defenders wouldn't do that, but
yeah, that could be I feel like that could be a problem. I mean, if it keeps happening, you would hope that the refs can. Well, I mean, you would hope lots of things about the refs, and most of those hopes would probably be for naught. But yeah, that I can see that being an issue going forward.
Well, and I wonder if the solution will be what it sounds like the league is doing with the hip drop tackle. I don't think they've called one yet. And Chris Collinsworth last night on the Sunday night broadcast was saying that part of the reason is that there are like 4 criteria for a hip drop that officials find very hard to catch all of them in real time. So the NFL seems to think that the way that they'll deter this is by fining people after games, like levying hefty fines. And I wonder if that'll be the case for this OPI DPI thing, because it must be hard to see in real time. I mean, it's very clear on the All-22. Even the replay that they showed, it was funny because Tony Romo was so prepared to be like, and McDuffie, like, you just got to get your hands off him. And then he like stopped and he was like, oh, Chase pulled him down. Like, wow. Like, you can see Chase pulling him right down. And he's like, well, what did he, I don't remember what he said. He was like, well, that's a big call for Cincinnati or something like that.
Yeah. It's like you really want to like bite your tongue there. But yeah. Well, maybe they can, I don't know. Would they start fining for that play? I feel like that's hard to. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Would they admit? There's a lot of questions there. But,
I wonder if they could
very
figure it under some like integrity of the game clause or something, because it's a. I mean, I feel like one could argue it's a clear attempt to deceive the officials. I don't know what other benefit you have from pulling the defensive back down. It's not like he was going to catch the ball.
Yeah, that's right. Question is whether they can. Yeah. So if they're getting fined for it after the fact, is that going to be enough to deter them? I mean, it can be a pretty helpful call in some situations.
Yeah.
Basically every situation. Well, if it's a trend that gets enough traction, you think they would at least have rule changes in the offseason, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about these injuries. So I guess Hollywood Brown might now be out for the year, or at least a long time. I don't know what you're hearing there. And then Pacheco has this, I think, broken fibula now.
Yeah, I think
Those are the two
the
main ones that I was thinking about.
the Hollywood Brown one is more bothersome to me just because I don't know how integrated he'll be able to be like playoff time. I don't think he's going to miss the whole year. I think it's going to be one of those things more like he will return in like week 15 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's enough time to be ready to go for the stretch run, which is when I think he could be really useful. Feel bad for the guy because they seem pretty certain he wouldn't need surgery, and then I guess it's just not healing the way, like, for Tyreek Hill's timeline, he was back at this point and then just played the rest of the season. So it's tough for whatever reason it didn't heal the way they wanted it to. Pacheco to me is a little less concerning. Like, obviously he's a very good running back, but we're not a very heavy running team. As long as we have a guy that can take advantage of good blocking, we can hold over. It sounds like Pacheco's timeline is something like 6 weeks. So if he were out all year, I think I'd be a little more worried. But I think, we have Carson Steele, who's a fullback. We have P. Ryan for our third downs, and I think we're going to just bring somebody in that we trust to kind of help, continue to share the load and have a committee. I heard actually we're bringing Kareem Hunt into the building, which I didn't know that he was ever going to come back after the way he left, but
yeah,
sounds like he's at least being talked to.
I'd heard that Reed is, every time he's been asked about Steele as a fullback, seems to talk about his running back qualities, and seems pretty high on them. So do you think he's going to have, like, what is he going to be the sort of second guy here?
Yeah, I think so. And I honestly, like, he has looked good in the carries he's gotten, except for he lost a fumble against the Bengals, which it was like one of those extra effort plays where he allowed the ball to be a little behind him as he was moving forward, and the defensive tackle did a good job of punching it out. But I think he's like a viable guy in a rotation. I don't know if he's the kind of guy I'd want taking like 20 carries. I'm not saying he couldn't be, like maybe he could be, but I'm not thrilled with going in with that plan. Like if it works out that works, great, but that shouldn't be our only plan, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Good. Well, we got a break coming up in just a bit here. What do you want any sort of more general retrospective on this Chiefs Bengals game? Any more like lessons or worries that you have coming out of it?
I think more than anything, my overall take is like it is quite a luxury to be able to win a game against a good team when you don't play well. Like, the game was very frustrating at times. Not a lot went right during the middle of the game. We clearly have a lot of things to clean up, but it is very nice to be able to go through that process and still win against a team that we expect to make the playoffs. So I have a lot of confidence that we will clean up a lot of things and it'll look better. I don't think our offense will look like this, even if we do meet the Bengals again in the playoffs. So I think overall one should be optimistic and happy that we didn't lose a game in the standings based on how we played.
Yeah, that's fair. Certainly, if we played well, our bad games are way worse than your bad games. But that's the kind of game where if we played a bad game, we definitely aren't winning that. But all right. Well, do you want to take a break here and then come back and talk some Steelers?
Sounds good. And we're back. All right. So why don't we dive into the Steelers Broncos contest at Mile High Stadium?
Contest.
Ended up 13-6 Steelers.
Yeah. It was not that fun of a game to watch. I imagine it was even less fun if you weren't a fan of either team. But the kind of game you probably should have expected, right? Low scoring, very non-competent offensive play, maybe in general. I mean, there's definitely moments, and the first half and second half for the Steelers were pretty remarkably different, I think. I think in the first half, the offense looked, Serviceable, pretty good, maybe even. I think Justin Fields was playing really well. Again, I don't think we asked him to make a lot of tough reads, but he made some really nice throws. Um, two of which at least were called back, or one of which was called back. Another one was called back, but I don't think that was a really nice throw. It was just a short out for a touchdown. Um, but yeah, I think I did I say Justin Reed? No,
I thought you said
Justin
Fields.
Fields. Okay. Well, hopefully I said Fields. Yeah, I think, so by the end of the first half, I was thinking like, okay, like he's playing really well, and I could see, going with him for the rest of the year if he keeps playing like this, to be honest. And then the second half happened, and I feel like I think he had less than 20 yards passing in the second half. It was not a fun time. Um, So it was really a tale of two halves, and I don't know. It would be interesting to see the tape about sort of if the Broncos were doing something different. I think they might have been putting more in the box, especially in the second half, and maybe just playing single high coverage a lot of the time, which you would have hoped that would be sort of time for us to take some shots. We were fine taking the shots in the first half, but we didn't really do much in the second half, and we ended up going three and out and really putting it on our defense a lot. And I think that was really like, I think we're comfortable with that. I think, the thought was if the defense has to win this game for us, just hold on to a lead basically in the fourth quarter, they can do it. And they did it, and they they should be able to do it. So, it's good that we can ask them to do it and they'll deliver. But it was, I think for a lot of Steelers fans, it was more tense than we wanted, certainly, especially after the way the first half went, and it seemed like we were, basically dominating. To see the second half become so tense was frustrating. But I kind of think that's just the sort of the mindset. I mean, some of Tomlin's comments after the game made it seem like that's what he expected, right? That we're not gonna try to pull away on offense. We're going to try to build a lead and then let the defense hold on to it. Um, and that's been our MO for a couple of years now. And the defense has gotten pretty comfortable doing that. So, it's hard to object, I guess, but it does make it less fun to watch, especially, well, maybe more fun to watch in hindsight. You get more of a roller coaster. But those are some rambling sort of big picture comments, but maybe I don't know. Do you want to get more into the weeds about individual performances, or what do you think?
Well, I do think that those comments from Tomlin do at least give some perspective, or at least a little more comfort in Fields only throwing for 20 yards in the second half. Like, it's possible they did what Andy Reid used to do all the time, which is basically like once you have the lead, just like scale it back. And like, I wonder if not only is this a global strategy because of the relative quality of your defense, but also like you're playing Bo Nix. So Tomlin might have just been like 10 points is enough. like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to need more than 10 points today. Like, we don't really have to do that much.
Yeah, that might really have been it. I mean, there's all sorts of things like Fields he hasn't turned the ball over yet as a Steeler. I'm knocking on wood, but
He's fumbled a lot of snaps though, hasn't
that's
he?
true. I mean, it hasn't been like it's been close, right? But it hasn't happened yet, and so maybe the coaching staff is just sort of wary of his turnover history in Chicago and thinking like, let's not ask him to do more and potentially, have a big game changing play that actually hurts us. It's just, let's just be conservative if we can. And we could in the second half there, and it worked out all right. But the other question is just, are we trying to skate by as much as, is that this phrase? Skate by.
I think it is skate by.
Yeah, we're trying to skate by as much as we can until Wilson's back. That might be what's going on. I don't know. It does feel like, I don't know. By halftime again, I was thinking maybe Fields could be the starter for the year, but it's just hard to gauge. There's a lot of reasons I think it's hard to gauge his performance so far. again, for one, we haven't asked him to make a lot of difficult reads. I think the big plays that he has made, he's made some really terrific throws. A lot of them have been called back. And so again, that's another reason that like maybe he's I think he has played better than this official stats are going to suggest. Um, so I feel like we don't really know what he's capable of in this offense yet. Partly because again we're being very conservative and not asking him to make difficult reads and having a lot of designed throws. Uh, but also partly because we keep getting penalties that kill drives or call back big plays and whatnot. And so it's I think the offense is better than the stats might suggest. I don't think it's great or even good really, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird situation that after having two full games, not to really know what you've got in a quarterback who's been in the league this long.
And also, like to me, I think this might just be my anti-Russell Wilson bias, but I'm not expecting Russell Wilson to look any better than this. Like at least Fields can make throws. Like Russell Wilson, I don't know that he's gonna make some of the like Fields again threw an out route from the right hash to the left sideline on a line on a third down to Pickens. Like
is that the third and 11? I think.
Yeah, it was a 3rd and 11. Like that is such a weapon to have. Like the defenses have to cover that. We'll just let more be open for you. I don't think Russell Wilson at age 35, 36. Like
I think he's 35.
Like he's got a good arm, but like I don't think he's got that arm. And I don't know. Watching him in Denver the last couple of years, like I was really unimpressed. And the only thing to me would be that if Fields were making a lot of mistakes, that then a veteran would be able to clean up, or if defenses key into what Arthur Smith is the kind of condensed playbook he's using here, and it's just becomes like we have to open it up more than Fields is capable of opening it up. Those would be the only two situations where I'd be like, yeah, I want to see Russell Wilson in there. Otherwise, like, I just feel like Fields' potential is so much higher if he can be brought up to it.
Yeah, that's possibly. I mean, that's I guess my worry about what happened in the second half is that Denver just sort of figured out, oh, they're not calling anything that's going to test us deep, basically, aside from the occasional scramble play or something. But yeah, I mean, and then they just played single high and put everyone in the box and made it hard for us to run and eliminated the short game basically, and we couldn't move. I mean, that's possibly what happened there, and so we'll have to see next week. I think Fields is expected to start again against the Chargers. Whether we open it up more or exactly what happens.
And I will say though, against Atlanta, like Fields to Pickens was effective against single high coverage. Like I trust him if they're gonna just send Pickens on a go route against a single high safety. Like I like that for Fields. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it has worked, and at least one big 51-yard pass in this game was called back for holding. We had some weird decisions about the right tackle in this game. It was Fautanu to start, and then second or third drive, Broderick Jones went in 6 plays had 3 penalties, a false start, and then 2 holding calls. One of those holding calls wiping out a 51-yard pass to Pickens, which was just perfect. It was like as well thrown as you could imagine. But I don't know. I mean, I did feel like those holding calls were a little bit ticky tacky, but again, I'm biased probably. I'm trying not to be, but I probably am. And Jones has got some work to do, I think, at this point. Looking worrisome, but yeah.
Did Fautanu not look good? Like,
no, he looked fine. I think he looked pretty good. I think PFF had him like really highly graded. I think they said he lost 1 run blocking rep and no pass blocking reps or something like that. I mean, there would be no reason based on his play not to keep playing him. I think it's a little hard to understand why we thought rotation at right tackle would be good.
The only thing I can think of is if they either like don't want him on the right long term and want him like more used to playing on the left or something, or if this is just like to try to not completely shoot Broderick Jones's confidence. It's like, no, you're not benched. You're still in a rotation.
Yeah, although given what's happening, I feel like this might be shooting his confidence worse than being
Yeah.
benched.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's not working. Um, yeah, it's a little, that's worrisome. But yeah, the offensive line in general was not as good in this game. I think they got less of a push in the running game. The final running numbers weren't as bad as I thought they would be. I thought they were going to be less and less exciting. I mean, they weren't great, but the yards per carry were better than I expected. Um,
Better than Denver.
yeah, I mean the defense is good. I mean, uh, our defense is good. I think that's again what we expected, and they've lived up to it. They in the second half toward midway through the third quarter on, I guess they started giving up more chunk plays, which was concerning. I They did talk after the game. Some of them mentioned how exhausted they were given the altitude.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's a good excuse. I don't know. We'll see going forward. If I mean, the other wrinkle this week is that we didn't stay on the field as much on offense as we did in Atlanta, so the defense didn't have as much time to rest. And compounding that with the altitude difference, I think that you have some explanation for why they were giving up more at the end of the game there.
Well, yeah, that could be even more of a problem against a Jim Harbaugh offense. If their
Yeah,
offense doesn't stay on the field, the defense will get gassed.
yeah,
What did you make of one thing that struck me as kind of odd was that I felt like they were, and I didn't go through and like sit and pick apart every play. I just like watched this game very quickly and skimmed through plays. But it seemed like there were two sacks where Bo Nix may not have been touched at all, or if so, like very lightly. Like it seemed like he
yeah.
was almost like spooked by the pass rush, and once someone was around his ankles, he just went down.
Yeah, there was. I remember the one by T.J. Watt where even on the replay, it's hard to see. It looked like maybe he
He
touched
just
his
like
ankle,
grazed him.
but he just fell down, and Watt got a sack for it. So
And
I
I think
mean,
Highsmith had one like early in the game where he came around the edge, and again, it was not like a ton of contact,
yeah,
and Knicks went down.
yeah. I'll take it, but that's it's not always going to be that easy, right? You got to get more contact with the quarterback typically than just touching their ankle, for example. Um, Although I bet if T.J. Watt like touched my ankle, it would be I would fall over, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm sure a touch in that capacity is like actually more of a shove or something. But anyway, yeah, you know, they'll look nice in the stat book, I guess. Um, I think I don't know. The defense was again, I think about what I expected them to be. They did give up like a couple, like they gave up a big 49-yard pass on a trick play um, that it wasn't quite a flea flicker, but it ended up being similar to a flea flicker, and Ponex got a deep a deep pass down to I think our 6-yard line or something. And that was like the play before Corey Trice went in and got a pick in the end zone. So that was fun. But
that was
there,
also I I thought that was a very good play by Trice because he like I think I'll have to watch it like on all 22, but it looked like he had a deep third or a deep half, and there was nobody on his side. But he noticed Cortland Sutton getting depth on the other side, so he dropped with him, and Bo Nix didn't see it at all. And so when Sutton came across the field, he was right there. Like that. This is his first year like playing real football, right in the
yeah,
NFL.
he didn't play at all last
That
year.
was pretty advanced. Like he wasn't just like staying shallow because there was no one deep on his side. Like he saw the post route and was like, "Oh, I got to get back," and he was right there. That was really good.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. And I didn't diagnose it the way you did there. I like physically speaking, he should be good. Um, and so it's cool to see him also making the sort of the mental adjustment to the NFL level, if that's indeed what's happening. Uh, I think there was also pressure up the middle at that point. It was either Kim Hayward or Montrevious Adams got a
I
lot
think
of
it was
pressure on Bo
Hayward.
Nix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, it was Hayward. You're right. Which has been a theme so far this year. Getting pressure up the middle has led to
Dude, the
interceptions for us.
interior has been and like so. I very near the end of the game. One of the plays I saw was a tight end screen, like out to the numbers. And before the tight end could get positive yardage, Keanu Benton went out and tackled him. And I was like, oh my God. Like the
Yeah,
defensive tackles have been out of their mind.
yeah. That happens like I think a few times a year for us, where a defensive tackle is making some play that you are thinking, why are you over there? But they haul butt around the field and they make plays for us. So, um,
Yeah, didn't I? There was something I saw on. I don't think I watched the play, but I saw there was a long gain that Denver had, and one of the people credited for the tackle was Cam Hayward, and I remember being like, "What?"
yeah,
It was like
that's not
maybe it was
unusual.
that 49-yard pass. I don't know, but it was something long, and I remember just being like, "Why is he there?"
Cam, yeah, I mean, I would be very surprised, but not shocked, I guess, if he was involved in the tackle in that play. I mean, I can't imagine that. Um, but yeah, what else did I want to? I mean, there in some respects, I feel like the game again. eh, After 2 weeks, I think it feels like we have been on the wrong end of a number of calls on plays that were very big for us. And this is usually the kind of thing that washes out over the course of the year. And it's not like I have any conspiracy about calls going against us or anything, but there were a couple. So Fields had a second touchdown pass to Pickens this time called back because of they called a pick on Van Jefferson in the end zone, where it looked to me like the defender just ran into him in the course of his route. So I didn't. And then I think they had one of the had the former ref come on and say, yeah, I don't think that should be a penalty because he was just running his route. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I thought that play was funny too because sometimes it seems like George Pickens like tries to make things look cool. I was like, did he really have
yeah,
to like stop and jump out like that into the end zone?
no, I think he definitely tries to make things look cool. I think he's like a product of the social media age or whatever, where you want to highlight like he'll try to do, and this has actually like hurt us before. He'll try to do a one-handed catch where he doesn't need to do a one-handed catch and it actually not succeed. Um, of course, he sometimes succeeds gloriously and it looks amazing, but yeah, I guess that's just something you have to live with nowadays, or maybe you don't, and I should be more upset about it. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I think he probably should have had that touchdown. Um,
And
and
probably should
then
have been able to get into the end zone a lot more easily than he did.
yeah, maybe he was imagining being on one. Like when the NFL does those advertisements and they have those like they pick dramatic plays basically for like the montages, and you could see that being in part of one of the montages, right? Him stretching for the pylon, but yeah, he could have just you would have thought just walked in essentially. Um, uh, yeah. What else? Any other thoughts that I like? Big picture thoughts on this game. It feels like it could have been more comfortable if some of those penalties had happened on plays that were not so significant. Yeah.
Do you want to look ahead to the Chargers, do our predictions now, or do you want to do that after we discuss more general NFL stuff?
Yeah, I guess we could each predict, yeah, the Chiefs and Steelers games next week. So you all have the Falcons, right? You play at
Yeah,
Atlanta.
at Atlanta on Sunday Night Football.
Okay. Hmm.
That one's a little tougher because we haven't seen Atlanta play the second time. So,
Yeah. I mean, they're
yeah,
playing what in Philly tonight?
yeah.
I expect them to get crushed. um, I guess it'll be interesting to watch because if they don't get crushed, that would make me more optimistic about our performance there in week one. But I think I think based on what happened to them in week one, Kirk Cousins does not look like he's mobile enough to be playing essentially quarterback at this stage. But
Well, and I don't know what to make of Philly. I'm not like completely sold on them, but it's too bad because the team that I missed out on and that you had was New Orleans. Like,
I mean,
I
so
thought
far they
Atlanta
look
would
good,
have.
right? But I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, well, we have to talk about that game in a minute because that is the most surprising result of the season so far to me. Like, I couldn't believe that game.
Yeah.
But okay, let's see. I think it's gonna be. I think I'm hoping that the Chiefs' offense will look better in this one. I'm not terribly scared of Atlanta. I'll go with a weird score. I'm gonna say 34-19.
19. That is.
Yeah.
What are you imagining there? How do you get to 19?
I think 4 field goals and a touchdown.
Okay, that's fair. 34-19. So you think the offense is going to be like have a bounce back performance?
Yeah, I think Mahomes primetime. Mahomes usually does well on the road, um, and I think like he is going to be very motivated for this not to be like last year. Uh, he's gonna see, and there are options now, unlike last year. So I think that we have enough viable pass catchers that we shouldn't be having. And he made a bad throw, a bad decision once. We had a fumble. There are some miscues that I don't think are going to be, they're going to cross over. And it is, I mean, it's rough. We put up 19 offensive points in that game, that's not acceptable for us.
Yeah,
but I
it's
think
low
we'll have
for you.
a bounce back.
That's more than we've scored in any game this year. Yeah. Okay. I think maybe I would see 27-13 Chiefs. Yeah, it should be comfortable. I'd be very surprised if we're not comfortable. Um, but I wonder if there's going to be a lot. I don't know how much the offense is going to need to sort of keep the foot on the pedal, foot on the gas into the second half. I think it could be just they build a quick early lead and can sort of play it easy from there.
That would be nice. It's been a while. I guess we could kind of say our wild card game against Miami was the last time that happened, where it would be nice to just have a comfortable game for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are few and far between for the Steelers these days. So Steelers Chargers next week.
Yeah.
I guess I am not optimistic. I mean, I guess for one thing, Herbert is getting X-rays, right? I don't know his status. Maybe they've updated it since I last checked, but it would be helpful
not that
if
I've
he
seen.
weren't playing. Assuming he's playing, this is a tough one for me to pick us winning. And I mean, it is our opening home game, so you'd think we get some tiny boost from that, but I feel like maybe 23-20 Chargers is, and 20 is optimistic given our offense over the first 2 weeks there. But yeah, I could see 23-20 in the Chargers there. I don't know exactly how that happens. Maybe they kick a last second field goal to win it or something.
I actually think so. This is going to kind of dovetail into one of my general NFL things to talk about, was just how good the Chargers really are. Because one could argue they've played against 2 bad teams, although the Raiders did just beat Baltimore. But
yeah, thankfully.
I know that was. I mean, it's one of the very rare times that I was like kind of rooting for the Raiders. I was like, I think it'll ultimately be more beneficial for us for Baltimore to have a loss.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced with the Chargers. I didn't, kind of going back, I did not really feel like their win against the Raiders was that impressive. I think their run game just kind of wore them down at the very end of the game, but I'm not sure that one, and then who knows what to make of the Panthers. Like, somehow
That's
Bryce
true.
Young is worse this year than last year. So
That's true.
I am actually going to pick a Steelers win. I think the Steelers are going to win 16-13. I think this is going to be an ugly game. Like,
we do love those ugly games. Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of running the ball. It's going to be a lot of short gains.
Sacks or tackles for loss.
I think like Benton Adams and Hayward are going to feast. Like, I think Justin Herbert's going to be like hearing footsteps by the fourth quarter. Their tackles are good, but you've got TJ Watt out there, so Joe Alt is going to get like a welcome to the NFL kind of moment. And I think that it'll be tough for the Chargers offense. They'll get a touchdown, and you all will too. But I think that it'll be a tight. Boswell's going to hit like a 55-yarder near the end of the game to win it, I think.
That is surprisingly detailed, but you can see it happening. We'll come back to this. If Boswell wins at the 55-yarder, 16-13, we should have more followers. That would be impressive, right? Yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun. It would be fun if we could pull that out. It would be also very strange. We would be 3-0. It's already strange to be 2-0 and having scored only one touchdown on the year so far. And at that point, if that plays that way, we would be 3-0, having scored two touchdowns. But I guess that's just how we're playing it this year. Any points are good points for us.
Well, and this coaching staff is very good at doing it. Like, this is kind of like an upgrade. It's like 2.0 of last year, and they got 10 wins out of this, Like, they know how to do this.
It does feel like that. It feels like how can you be happier about the offense this year than last year? I mean, they do seem to be. It does seem to be slightly better thought out. A lot of the plays look like we've actually schemed people open in ways that we weren't doing before. And Fields is a better quarterback, or at least has a better arm than Pickett did. But so yeah, I mean, the offense has flashes of being more promising, but they're not exciting. Again, if you're asking for my opinion on whether you should watch this game, not being a Steelers fan or Chargers fan, I would say probably not.
But it's the Nance Romo game.
Is it?
Yeah, you get Nance and Romo.
That's risky. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway.
I'm hoping that actually I didn't check to see when the Giants and Jets are playing, but I'm hopeful that this will be the game shown in the New York market so I can actually watch the whole game. Otherwise, I'll have to red zone it again.
Well, that might be a blessing in disguise. Good. So should we go around the league a bit and look at other games from this week?
I'm going to start with, I'm going to try to talk about things that are somewhat relevant to our predictions, just to keep those in. And so, unfortunately, I'll have to start with Caleb Williams. Yikes. So I watched that almost the entirety of that game last night. And it was like the defense was keeping Caleb Williams in the game. Oh, that's a good question. The real question is, like, how many times did he bail from like a perfectly fine situation, or like run around and then just throw one up and throw a pick? He managed to get out of a sack in like such an athletic way, then like spin around and he turned and promptly like threw it in the triple coverage and it was picked off. It was like, I don't know that a defender has ever been more happy that they didn't get a sack than Danielle Hunter on that play. I don't know. He's really trying to do a lot, and it's true that the Bears' offensive line isn't helping him, but even when everything is fine, he is not looking good.
Yeah, that's right. I'm certainly regretting that pick at this point. He was my lock for offensive rookie of the year, and he's looked absolutely terrible. But well, I should have seen it coming. The Bears always have turned promising prospects into not promising players. They did it with Fields too. So,
that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what more to say aside from I regret that lock. Definitely, I'm sure that's going to come back to bite me. What about? Well, I guess this is really. I mean, New Orleans. We should talk about New Orleans and Dallas.
Yeah.
Because I think, what did I say? I think one of my narratives about Dallas was the defense could be really good, and they just gave up 44 points to Derek Carr. So I don't know how I feel about that either. What was your read on that? I didn't get to see much of that game, but what was your read on
It was, I think, man, I don't even know what the most surprisingly thing, like, just that, because Derek Carr has the ability, he's done it to the Chiefs before, when John Gruden was his head coach. He can surprise you if you're not expecting him to throw deep. Like, I don't think he's a consistent, like, intermediate level thrower or he's a great decision maker, but he'll throw a deep ball if a guy's open and he'll put it on him. And so if you are willing to let, play single high or play zero coverage and you're letting him have a chance, like, especially if you get someone one-on-one on the safety, like, Carr will make you pay. And they just let him do it multiple times. Like, I couldn't believe when they went up like 14-3 and then it's like, why is Rasheen Shaheed like getting past the safety again? Like, what are we doing? But I don't, that was shocking to me. I really thought the Cowboys defense would give the Saints fits. The way that they played against Cleveland, I really thought that their pass rush would be too much. They would because that's one thing is that no quarterback likes a pass rush, but if you hit Carr a couple times from his time when he was in our division, like, that was it. Like, you're not worried about him anymore. So
they kept him pretty clean. Yeah,
they kept him clean against an awesome defense. I couldn't believe it. And then the other part to me was how, and I didn't see a lot of the second half because it was such a blowout, but I can't believe the Cowboys only scored, like 3 points in the second half? Like, the game was over. I thought the Cowboys would at least make a run for it and make it something like 44-35 or something, but I think they went into half with 16 points and it ended up 44-19 if I remember correctly.
So is Carr good, or like what do you make of that? I mean, he's been good this year.
No, I don't think he's good.
No.
No. I mean, I've seen him do. So he had a really good year in 2016. I think people forget that he was like in the top 5, I want to say, for MVP. This was a really annoying year for me because I think the Chiefs went 12-4 and the Raiders also went 12-4, but we managed to get the tie break, and it was so annoying because it was like, why can't we get rid of this team? Like the division like really came down to the wire. So he had that year, and then he played us really well in 2020. He beat us in Kansas City, and then we barely beat the Raiders in Vegas. So he has spurts. Carr's not incompetent. I put him on the same kind of level as someone like Jared Goff, who like he can have his moments. He'll look good for a while, but ultimately he's Derek Carr.
We know who that is. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they can keep scoring like 40 points a game. I don't know. They're going to be good. But
yeah, they almost became the first team in NFL history to score 47 points in 3 straight games. They had done it in their like end of the season game last year. They scored 47 in the opener this year, and they were 3 points away from doing it again.
That's insane. What about elsewhere in the league?
I have to bring up Will Levis's stupid fumble. I don't know if you saw that, but I texted Sonu. I think I texted you the same thing. I said like Will Levis maybe the dumbest quarterback in the league, like right after that happened. And I don't feel like Sonu appreciated me going so negative on his quarterback, but I was just like, what in the world? And then Brian Callahan in the press conference after literally said it was dumb. So I sent that to Sonu too. And his response to that was like, well, good on Brian Callahan for, calling it as he saw it. It's good. The head coach is being honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, it's one thing to do that, but it's another thing to have a play like that 2 weeks in a row. It's just like, okay, what are you doing? That was a winnable game.
And maybe, that's a case where you're just trying to do too much, right? You're putting too much pressure on yourself and trying to make absurd plays that end up looking very, very, very stupid. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, what I mean, I mean, there's a number of fairly surprising results this week, I guess. Um, uh,
The
I
Raiders
guess
winning
San
in
Francisco
Baltimore.
losing. Yeah, the Raiders winning in Baltimore. I was I mean, to see Cincinnati and Baltimore both 0-2 to start the year at the
Yeah.
bottom, and us 2 and I mean, I
And the
still think
Chiefs
there's
have
a.
tiebreakers over both.
I know we really owe you for that. Thank you for your help. I know it's probably going to be short lived. I think probably we will. These standings will invert in a few weeks or something like that. But I'm going to keep enjoying it while it lasts. Being
Well,
able to
apparently
dominate everyone.
Tomlin has never lost the division after starting 2-0. So,
Yeah, that's. I mean, it could just be a while since we started 2-0. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
yeah,
we
I
start
mean,
2-0.
fast starts were not your thing the last couple of years.
No, no, neither in games nor in the season.
Yeah.
I think Minnesota beating San Francisco was surprising. I didn't watch much of the highlights, but it didn't
I
look like it. They were in
they,
control basically.
well, their defense was stellar. Like, and I while I was watching it, I was like frustrated because they did this to San Francisco last year. Uh, they beat them. I think it was in Minnesota again. I think. Um, but Kirk Cousins played that game. I remember, and there were some weird plays. Like there was I think like Jordan Addison had a catch that was like stolen from him by Charvarius Ward and taken for a touchdown, and then like almost the reverse happened later in the game. It was
Oh,
a very
yeah,
strange
I kind of
game,
remember that. Yeah,
but
yeah,
the common theme was that the defense really troubled Brock Purdy, and they did it again. Brian Flores seems to have a really good beat on what Shanahan's trying to do with Purdy, and Purdy could not get comfortable. I don't know that Darnold was like awesome. He had that 197-yard touchdown to um, Justin Jefferson. Obviously I'm the one who said like hard under on the Vikings, and they're now 2-0. So I only have they can only get 5 more wins all year, but I'm not that high on San Francisco, and I still believe the wheels are going to fall off for Darnold, but we'll see.
yeah. I mean, I didn't lock anything about my lock was Caleb Williams winning Offensive Rookie of the Year for that division, but yeah, I did say Justin Jefferson should have a big year, and that's looking fine so far.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that's looking
I
good.
had Minnesota in last place as well, and that's not looking wonderful. Um, um, what
All right.
anything else?
Do you want to come back after a break and then maybe wrap up?
Yeah, good. Yeah, before we get braked without meaning to break. All right.
All
Yeah,
right.
we'll come back and maybe do an anecdote or something like that,
Sounds good.
and we're back.
Uh,
Um, so maybe a few more things to talk about from last week around the league. I guess we could bring up the Buffalo Miami game and Tua's concussion, which is just
yeah,
scary to
that
see.
game. Yeah, very scary and very unfortunate. I think this one's well, first I think just to talk about the game a little bit, I think I was pretty impressed that Buffalo looked pretty good.
Mhm.
One of the things that I had thought this going into the season was that their offense wouldn't look great, at least their passing offense. And Josh Allen was awesome in week one at this in the second half, and I mean Buffalo kind of moved it along. I think they still primarily lean on the ground game, but they're
Yeah, I
finding
was looking
ways
at
to
his
move the
final
ball.
stats, and he didn't throw it that much. I guess he didn't need to, right? But 13 for 19 for 139 and a touchdown. I mean, it's fine. It's like what we expect out of our quarterbacks, but not typical Josh Allen numbers.
And it's not it's a little lower than what I expect for him through the year, but I don't expect we'll see a lot of like 350, 400-yard games or even
Mhm.
300-yard games for that matter. I think I'm expecting him to be like a 200, 220 kind of passer this year because of his receiving core. But if they run the ball like that, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I mean, he's, you know, if they can just, if they can get efficient, like, play from him like that, that's more like game manager level. I'm not sure if Josh Allen's like the kind of person you want to rely on for that because he can be erratic. But
Yeah.
if he can do that, they could be dangerous. Like more dangerous than us. Let's put it that way. So, uh,
I don't know if that's the bar that the Bills fans had for themselves
yes,
for this year.
more dangerous than the Steelers. Sorry. Uh,
But
but
for the Tua side, like that's, I mean, it's really unfortunate, especially because of we're in this kind of weird middle point where we don't really know what to do with this, you know? And I think that obviously the league understands the dangers of concussion, or at least admits the dangers of concussions in ways that it didn't before, and has protocols that didn't exist before. And we know things like the more times you have a concussion, your threshold for having a future concussion lowers. And CTE, I think people associate a lot with concussions, and that's not a bad association, but even subthreshold blows to the head over time are what really cause CTE. So I don't know. I think it's a tough one on, and then there's the whole idea of like somebody's life and their decisions and what they want to do with their life, you know, and as long as all the information's been given to them, they can make decisions that someone else might think are risky or even reckless.
yeah, I mean, we could probably get into that for longer than we have right now. I would be curious at some point to sort of get your take on that. Um, Ethically speaking, what is the role of like doctors in that scenario today? Is there ever any reason to take a sort of paternalistic view to the patient that you think that they're not understanding the information they've been given effectively or not? But that's an 18 cans of worms right there that I've sometimes opened when I've taught bioethics before, but I feel like you might have some interesting perspective on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very interesting topic, and we could even get into like from a psychiatrist perspective. There was a lot of debate about things like physician assisted suicide and things like that.
Yeah,
Like, what is
yeah,
yeah, I feel like that. Too bad we've lost the off season. That would have been, that's a good. If we get like a
yeah.
week with a little more downtime, that would be a good topic to revisit, and particularly pertaining to concussions, because I'm of the mind with Tua in particular that it's just kind of at this stage with the information we have, it's his life. And as long as he's provided with the information, no, I don't know that one can say with a ton of confidence that they know how his life would lead differently if he had one more concussion or not, we have people like Steve Young and Troy Aikman that had repeated concussions through their career in the 90s and are still seemingly doing fine now, and maybe they won't do fine in the future, and how much of that is due to the concussions will be hard to say. But whenever there's this much ambiguity, I don't know that as a physician you can be like, you can't do this anymore. And
Yeah,
plus, if you do that, no one's gonna, the person doesn't want to listen to you. They won't listen to you anyway.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think you're right because given the sort of the epistemic scenario right now, it would be hard to take a hard paternalistic attitude on something like this.
And so
Um,
little information.
yeah.
But
Do
before we
Green
get into
Bay Indy?
anecdotes, yeah, I mean, we have to talk about Anthony. I feel like this is like your big flag in my mind, given that you are at University of Florida, so you have more background with Anthony Richardson. I feel like this is one that I don't feel like a lot of people are saying because they're rightfully so enamored with his physical skills and are hopeful that he'll just be one of the most exciting people to watch for years to come. But there was a big shot in the arm for your whole idea that Anthony Richardson will not be good based on his
Yeah,
performance today.
I mean, I'm not like relishing it. It would be awesome if he had a great career. But yeah, he had, why, look up the numbers here, but I think he had 3 picks. Is that right? Yeah, one touchdown, 3 picks, 17 of 34 passing. I mean, um, I don't know. I'm not surprised. I mean, I still think he might have a long career just because he can give those highlight reel plays, and even when they're sick of him in Indianapolis, because he makes all these not great plays or dumb plays too. Uh, you know, people will remember the highlight reel plays, and he might have a career somewhere else after this. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's super athletically gifted. I just don't. I haven't ever seen him like turn it on sort of from the sort of mental perspective and processing the game in the way that you would want. And to be fair, I haven't seen Fields do that either, so I don't know. But I'm
That's
hoping he
true.
can.
Yeah, well, that game I think really helped because you have the Packers in the Super Bowl, and
Yeah,
you said that their defense will be like good this year, and that game really kind of helped a lot of those. I thought they really looked good.
yeah. I mean, you can't. I said Anthony Richardson would not be good, and I said the Packers defense would be good. I mean, in some ways, the more you read into one of those, in this case, the less you read into the other one. But yeah, somehow this was good for me for my predictions, so I'm happy with that.
And
Um,
especially if Green Bay can hold down the fort while Love is gone, then that Super Bowl pick remains quite alive.
yeah, which I keep hearing different timelines about, but anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. The most recent thing I heard is they're targeting a Week 5 return now.
Yeah,
So
I heard that too. But I also heard, well, whatever. Yeah, lots of stuff in the air about that. Do you want to do some quick anecdotes and then wrap up?
sure. Um, did you want to start this time?
Uh, yeah, I can start. It's not again not a like particular episode, but maybe I'll introduce it with a question to you. Do you tell people that you translated the Aeneid from Latin?
No, I do not.
Okay, good.
I
Yeah, me
have
neither.
brought up that I've read the Aeneid. I don't remember how it came up, but I remember this happened. Like, I wouldn't say I tell people. I think I have told a person that I read the Aeneid. I can't remember the context though.
Yeah, because I ostensibly that's what we did in Latin for a couple years there, right? But in high school, but I've never said that I translated the Aeneid from Latin because what would happen typically is we would spend about an hour doing this in one of our classes, and we would maybe get a sentence done, with most of it being guided by the
By the
instructor.
teacher, yeah.
Yeah, like we even. I mean, sometimes they're very hard sentences. Like the verb would be like a page later or something like that. But
Or implied. I remember like
yeah,
they'd be like,
right.
it's like they brought the from the ship, and it's like grain is implied here. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, what,
That,
they weird implications in Latin apparently, but maybe we do the same thing in English without realizing it. Yeah. Anyway, that was it. It was just sort of reminiscing about those. I feel like I knew way less than I should have known coming out of that about how to translate really lots of things from Latin. But to claim that I translated the Aeneid from Latin would be a gross exaggeration.
yeah, bull. I feel better saying that like we translated some of Cicero's speeches. Like I feel
Mm.
like at that I kind of knew what was going on at that time. Once we got to the Aeneid, I was like, half the time I was like, what? Like some days, and I feel like I liked Latin class more than most, but I remember some of those days, like if that room would get hot, like it would be in the winter and they like blast the heat in this old
Yeah.
building. It would get hot, and we were just reading the Aeneid, and we had it like right before lunch, and you get like sleepy. Those are some rough days, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was
And
literally
there,
like a year and a half, right? Like
I think
because
it
we
was. Yeah.
started it before AP Latin, right? We did it for a little while in like Latin 4, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, didn't get that far. I wonder what the expectation was, but we didn't get very far.
Well, my anecdote is from a similar time period. Actually, I think this is when we were in ninth grade. Uh, no, I think it was 10th grade. We were both on the basketball team, and if you remember, we used to play like kind of smaller schools around Columbia, Missouri. Usually, they would be schools that had some like they were kids in like farming communities who were uncommonly strong. Like I remember just like not being the same physical kind of person as some of these people. But that didn't compare. We like so, but these are still like smaller schools, so it's not like you're getting like it's not like a 600-person class where you have some like real athletes that might be going somewhere. But once we played Douglas High School from Columbia, Missouri, which was a bigger school,
Oh yeah.
and they beat the crap out of us. Like they beat us so bad. And there was one time where a guy stole the ball. This, unfortunately, in this game, I don't think I played because I had sprained my foot around this time. I was in a walking boot for a long time and on crutches, so
Yeah.
I don't think I either hurt myself in this. I don't think I hurt myself in this game. I think I just didn't play. I remember being in like street clothes, but someone stole the ball and came down the court and dunked it, and we're like 15 at this time, you know, like and we were just like, what in the world? And I remember you coming back to the huddle and being like, I kind of just want to take the ball and hand it to him and see if he'll do it again. Like,
oh god, yeah, I forgot about that. That was I remember seeing it happen and thinking, wow, he just dunked the ball like on us. Like nothing, no one on our team could come remotely close.
Like a couple people might like touch the net, like.
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting blocked by someone that was probably like 4'10" or something like that. Like, there's no reason I should. But like, I'm not talking. But we just got dunked on. I was like so astounded by that. Like, what could he do if we just like give him an open court? Like, just do whatever you want. Right? It's gonna be more fun than whatever we're gonna do. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, the things that happen when you're in a tiny school and have to do athletics.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we're having to wrap up because my day job is getting in the way. But thanks to everybody who has been following along and been commenting on social media. We'll continue to read the comment of the week. I just checked in a break, and the All-22 tape is all out. So
nice.
I will try to get the Chiefs video out tomorrow and the Steelers video out the next day.
I'll send you some plays that I think might be worth looking at. For good or bad.
I'll probably start cutting plays up tonight. So if you have anything fun, I'll be happy to look at them. But yeah, otherwise, those videos will be out during the week, and
to everyone
will be back
listening,
on
if you
Monday.
haven't looked at Ajay's videos, you should definitely check them out. They're pretty awesome. He does the full game breakdowns on YouTube and gets into some pretty cool insights about a lot of those plays. So take a look.
They've been fun to do, and we hope we can keep doing them all year. Otherwise, we will be back on Monday to talk to you about week 3.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Until next time.